Beautiful women, deadly sharks, dangerous criminals. That's what you'll be getting in Shark Island, directed by Stephen Edgewood. This is a 2024 low-budget thriller, action, horror, mystery, whodunit movie, I guess you want to say. So, the story focuses on a group of models who are going to a remote island in the area of Thailand somewhere, and they are accompanied by a diver, a photographer, and a security guard. And this security guard's actually there to protect a priceless necklace, which the owner wants these models to kind of wear whilst taking these photographs, because it's going to kind of help promote the sale of this kind of necklace. However, this necklace brings out the worst in people, of course, and there are people out to steal it by any means necessary. They are cut off from communication, and this island is called Shark Island, clearly because there are sharks in the water, and that seems to be the only way of escape, and the killer may well be using the shark to kind of cover his tracks. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So this is a 2024 release, although I believe it was made 2021, something along the lines of that. So it's been on the shelf for a little while. So let's discuss what works in this movie's favour. Now, this being shot around Thailand, or an island off Thailand, I've got to say it looks suitably beautiful and tropical and very, very picturesque. And I do think this kind of goes a long way in giving this movie a genuine kind of luxury feel when you're thinking about, models going on a photo shoot, and it definitely kind of looks that part, and it does seem also quite remote and things like that. So I think the location here is actually kind of quite strong, and there's some great kind of shots of this natural environment, and this crystal clear blue water and everything. It looks very delightful to go and swim in. Of course, you have these sharks in it in the story, so not so delightful to swim around in, but it looks great, I have to say. Now, the sharks themselves are, the majority of the time, are kind of just footage of real sharks, kind of B-roll or stock footage and things like that. We do get a little bit of practical kind of fins through the water, but for the most part they've incorporated actual kind of footage of sharks. So there's not really the rubbery kind of looking or CGI sharks here. So yeah, the shark sequences, when we do see them, they're incorporated reasonably well, and they are using footage of genuine kind of sharks. That's all fairly, fair. And there is an idea here of a kind of a whodunit, who is involved in this criminal kind of enterprise who obviously kind of steal this priceless necklace and things like that. So it'll kind of keep you guessing in regards to the culprits and who might be involved and who's kind of complicit and things like that. So there is an idea here of peeling back the layers and, potential suspects, and everyone might be involved, or there might be no one involved, obviously. So there's that element to it. It has more of an storyline about this kind of theft of this necklace. So it plays a little bit more like a mystery thriller to a degree. So if that's more your interest rather than a kind of an out-and-out shark movie, which we'll kind of come on to again, but this might be a movie that might interest you, with the sharks being more of a sort of just a background element, to be honest with you. But yeah, so if you're more interested in a crime caper, then this might be more your speed here. It's not a particularly kind of gory movie, but there's a reasonable amount of deaths and things like that. It is very kind of low budget, and I do think they do a fair job in kind of masking the sort of, obviously, the kind of the low budget production value here to a degree, at the very least. The only kind of recognisable name for myself was a small role for Michael Paré, who kind of crops up in really more of an extended cameo more than anything else. And it's a little bit of a strange role, I have to say, that really didn't have much impact on the story. It almost feels like they've got Michael Paré late in the day, and then they just kind of fitted him in this sort of a weird little sort of cameo role. But anyway, So let's discuss what doesn't work in this movie. This is clearly a very low budget movie, and I think although the best efforts here to kind of disguise the fact, and it does, because of this kind of like location shooting, I do think it does have a certain feel of genuineness, kind of luxury island stuff, but just the general technical side of things do come across as a little bit more low budget. For example, there's some quite clunky ADR here. Which, if you don't know, which is the practice of kind of redubbing lines and things like that after the fact. And there's some sequences, particularly early on in the movie, where people seem to be talking when nothing's coming out, and there's kind of like floating voices that seem to be put over the film. It's not particularly kind of well done, and this is again a indicator here that obviously the budget is quite low and the production was probably quite a relatively kind of quick turnaround. Probably the main critique I would imagine most people will say here is there's actually quite little shark action in the film. As I've kind of alluded to here, the sharks are more of just a reason to keep these people on the island. And there is actually, the deaths involved in sharks are actually quite minimal. It is more about a criminal killing people on the island more so than actual sharks. There is a couple of shark attacks in the movie, but don't go into this movie expecting it to be a shark attack movie first and foremost. We have actually seen a few films that have incorporated a kind of criminal element story in a kind of a shark attack movie, but I would still say a lot of those films tend to have the sharks more in the forefront. This one, it's really just a background element. And you should go into this movie with that in mind, because I think if you're looking at this film for a shark film first and foremost, you will be sorely disappointed. I think there are some story elements here that just seem quite superfluous. The whole security element of this $10 million kind of necklace seems very sort of loose, shall we say. Doesn't really seem particularly kind of well thought out, all this sort of thing. It just seems they're very trusting, these people who have kind of lent this necklace out. I mean, there might be elements of the story that will come more apparent as the movie goes on, but I think just the general setup here, it seems a little shonky, especially in the very beginning of the movie. We're told, there's going to be more people on the shoot, but for some mysterious reason, these people haven't turned up and things like that, and it all seems a little bit suspicious. And you would think if you had this, very high value kind of artifacts, people would be asking more questions and things like that. So there's the story elements here. It's not particularly taking itself too seriously, and don't go into this movie thinking it's going to be a particularly well thought out movie in regards to plot. I think maybe probably the most, outside of the kind of the lack of sharks here, the thing that people I think might notice on the negative side of stuff is some of the poor acting here. It's a cast that I would say the majority of people in it, that the acting was on the lesser side of good. Let me just put it like that. So the acting isn't brilliant, and there are some actually quite pretty poor performances too. At best, I would say some maybe acceptable, some are maybe fine for this kind of level of lower budget movie, but a lot are subpar, and some of them are quite atrocious, to be honest. I'm not going to point out exactly who, but the range isn't brilliant. Let me just put it like that. It's a relatively, for a kind of a thriller movie, I will say it really lacks a little bit in thrills. It's not exactly a taut movie with, dramatic sort of sequences. It all seems a little bit sort of relaxed and kind of quickly shot, and thus makes the kind of the pacing of the movie and the general just a feel of excitement somewhat lacking in this movie. It all seems a little bit lackadaisical and low stakes to a degree, and even the kind of when these sort of deaths happen, it doesn't really have any much impact because it's quite poorly staged a lot of times. Overall, I've got to say this movie was, it feels very much like an afternoon TV movie. doesn't have much bite, you might say. It's a poorer example of a shark thriller, not really delivering in shark action or the kind of like the a crime caper thriller either, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's a little bit of a damp squid, this one, more so than a ferocious shark fanatic film. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? Please do let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.